Hello, Tim here with StudentAthleteWorld.com. This week's topic is when to commit. Many of you are starting to begin your senior year, and today I want to touch on just a few of the topics that relate to committing to a school. So the first thing I want to mention is that from our experience, many kids are never 100% sure. It's always going to be a difficult decision of moving away from high school and going to college. So if you feel 80% sure, that's probably about as much as you can hope for. So if you feel comfortable with the school, don't be afraid. It's going to be a big leap either way. The second thing that you want to consider is you want to find out the schools that are recruiting you if they have an early decision process. Now this is most applicable to the very high academic schools and those of you that are applying to schools that maybe are more competitive to get into. The early decision process, many times a kid will get admitted in the fall of his senior year and you have to decide by a certain day, and that if you don't take that offer, you may not get admitted in the spring when it's more competitive. So that's something you want to make sure you ask the admissions offices if they have an early decision process. If they do, then your decision process will be moved up further than the rest of the students applying for college. The next thing you want to ask the admissions offices of the schools that you're looking at is if they have financial aid deadlines, when you can apply for financial aid and when the decisions on the allocation of those funds will be. Some schools are a little bit different in when they give out the financial aid, but almost every school has a first come, first served policy, meaning it's in your best interest to get your financial information in as soon as possible so that you can be part of the discussion for that financial aid. Again, this is different at every school, so you want to make sure you're having those conversations with the admissions and financial aid representatives. Now the last part I want to talk about is probably the most confusing. And this is, how does the FAFSA and financial need-based aid coincide with potential athletic aid, the admissions process, and ultimately your financial aid packaging? This can be really confusing. So first of all, the FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. Now many people won't apply or don't think they need to apply for the FAFSA because they feel they're going to make too much money to qualify for free money from the federal government. Now that very well may be true, but you may qualify for federal student loan money, which is interest-free loans that you don't have to pay back until 6 months after graduation, or maybe work study. More importantly, when you fill out the FAFSA, you're going to get what's called an EFC, or an estimated family contribution, that the federal government decides this is what they think you can afford to pay for school. The reason why you want to fill out your FAFSA as soon as possible is that EFC, even if you don't get federal money, the individual schools can give you financial aid based off of that EFC. So it's very important that you fill out the FAFSA. So here's a common problem that happens. A family is looking at a school in the fall of their senior year, and the coach says, we'd like to offer you a small, 1/6 scholarship, so $5,000 scholarship to a $30,000 school or something like that, and we'd like you to commit. But the family says, well, we can't fill out the FAFSA until January because the FAFSA goes on your last year's taxes. So you have to wait until the end of the year to fill out the FAFSA after you get your taxes back in January, and then you find out what financial need you'll get from the school. So the coach will want you to commit to the school before you even know what it's going to cost. Now obviously that's not good for you because you don't know what you're committing to. What a lot of schools will do, and you may need to ask them if they will do this, is do what's called a FAFSA estimator. That means they can take the previous year's taxes, and this is during the fall or late summer or early fall of your senior year, and they will do an estimator saying this is what we think you'll qualify for family need. Some schools will even guarantee to match your estimator with your actual FAFSA numbers that will come months down the road. So if in the fall you do an estimator based on the previous year and you qualify for a $6,000 grant money to their school, and then once you fill out the FAFSA and it says you only qualify for 4, they'll match the other 2 and make that fit. Not every school will do FAFSA estimators. Typically the schools that are tuition driven, private, more expensive, are going to be more likely to do FAFSA estimators. So ask a financial aid representative if you can do a FAFSA estimator, and try to do that as soon as possible in the fall. What you want to do throughout this entire process is you want to get all the nuts and bolts taken care of before you have to make a decision. What a lot of people do is they wait until they have an offer and then have to decide how much that actually costs. So it's well worth your time and effort to narrow down your potential decisions as soon as possible, and then find out what each school is going to cost. Not a guess, not a we think it's going to cost about this, but actually go through the process with the financial aid and admissions departments at each school and find out an exact number of what that school is going to cost. Only then can you make a qualified decision. I hope this was helpful today. So remember the key points. If you're 80% sure, go with it. Don't feel like you have to wait until you're 100% sure. In our experience, we find way more kids who pass up on a good opportunity and then end up taking a worse one, rather than ones that are regretful that they committed early. So if you're 80% sure, go with it. Find out if schools have early decision deadlines or application or admission and financial aid deadlines. Find out what those deadlines are. The best person to ask is the financial aid and admissions department, or of course the coach. Find out if they will do a FAFSA estimator for you. And then the last piece to add to that is make sure you get your taxes done as soon as possible this year, so come January 1st you can be first in line to get your FAFSA numbers to each school that you're interested in. More information on this topic and many more is available at studentathleteworld.com. Have a great week.